Welcome to an episode of the podcast Art Insiders New York. My name is Anders Holst. The theme of the podcast is New York, with a focus on behind-the-scenes conversations with fascinating people who are making an impact in the world of art, design, and architecture. Today we find ourselves on William Street in Lower Manhattan at the office of the New York City Economic Development Corporation. It is from here that the exponentially successful NYCxDESIGN is managed and coordinated with over 400 events over 2 weeks in 5 boroughs every year in May. Milan has traditionally been the center of the design world since the 1960s, but now New York is making a huge effort to put the city on center stage. Who else would be better to share this fascinating story of how a design event of this magnitude happens every year than the person at the epicenter of it all, Edward Hogikyan. Edward is currently the Senior Vice President Marketing at NYC & Company, the official marketing, tourism and partnership organization for the city of New York. Very welcome, Ed.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So what do you call this? When I was thinking of one word to describe it, is it a conference, fair, a seminar? What is it?
One word? I would say celebration. And it's a celebration of design. And putting a spotlight not only on what's happening here in New York City, which is considerable, but also bringing the conversation from around the world here.
I studied the material that you sent me, and I understood that Milan is the center of design and has been so traditionally, and now you're taking over.
Well, I don't want to be the one to say that. I've heard that said by some others. I would say that we are both key centers of global design, and Milan and their Design Week as well, which has been around since 1961, is probably the premier design week right now that everyone kind of goes to, and we are, so I'm told, kind of catching up to them, which is great to hear after only 6 years.
Could you just give us a sense of this whole event?
So this past year we had nearly 400 events, and they were scattered over the course of 2 weeks and throughout the 5 boroughs that comprise New York City. And we are in the process of tabulating the results in terms of attendance, economic impact, and we're hoping that at least we're on par with last year, where we saw nearly 350,000 attendees. It was an event that brought nearly a third of those people were visitors to New York City, and there were over 112,000 of them that were first-time attendees to the event. On the economic side, just the visitors alone spent approximately $67 million in the city. And that's just while they were here, to say nothing of the additional business that was generated and conducted during the course of this. And for the city, this is really important because the design sector itself is something that is comprised of over 52,000 designers here in New York City alone. And over the last 10 years, there's been about 30% growth in that number. We have about 8,000 design firms, and we also have 10 of the best design and architecture schools in the world. And also as a creative cultural center, we have over 800 museums and galleries. So the sum of all those different things, maybe another city might have one great museum or one great school or a couple of kind of key businesses, and we just have huge numbers, and that's what I think draws companies here, what it draws people here to experience New York's design scene, and what's bringing people to NYC by Design.
You mentioned in an interview, Metropolis, that the goal is to make the design industry grow and to ensure New York is a part of the global conversation, as you said. So you are, in essence, an emancipator of all of these various actors. And how does that work? I mean, I could just imagine a steering committee with you have 30 members, right? I mean,
30 plus.
Yeah. I mean, I can't imagine anything more difficult than it's like herding cats here.
The steering committee, which is really important to the planning of NYC by Design, and we meet every month at a minimum. And when NYC by Design was first kind of created, the desire was to bring together people that represented different parts of the design sector in New York City. So we looked to trade organizations, like for graphic artists, architects, interior designers, having a representative from those groups. Some events that were already around, like ICFF, the International Contemporary Furniture Fair, which is one of the anchors of NYC by Design, and one of the reasons we selected May to have this, because it gave us a good solid foundation upon which to build. We also have representatives from all schools, the museums in the city, a number of other city agencies, and some just design specialties. We have 4 different design districts currently, and those seem to be growing each year. So we have representatives from each of those as well. And when we started, I think a lot of people were skeptical. They didn't really understand what we were doing. And to be honest, I'm not sure we were completely sure what we were doing at that point either. We were given, a request to create something that would put a spotlight on the design sector. And so at the time I was with NYC and Company, the city's tourism organization, and we kind of put together a list of these people, brought them together for our first meeting. Yeah. And something that I often say about that first meeting is somebody raised their hand and said, this is the first time we've all been in the same room. And that, to me, kind of was a defining point for NYC by Design, because we understood that each of the different verticals had their groups, their organizations. They talked to certain groups during things like at ICFF or some of the other events that were happening before NYC by Design. They just kind of talked to their world, but there was no umbrella to bring all of that together and to go out to the world kind of collectively and say, come to New York City during this time to experience the best in design from New York City and around the world. And I think some people thought we were creating events, which we aren't. And so I would say it took a couple years before everyone really understood what we were doing, and they understood the benefit to them of being part of this group, because the collective, whole of NYC by Design is what allows us to get the great kind of press and coverage and to really focus on everything, and they each do their own individual events, but we're promoting it globally as just come and experience design in New York City during these couple of weeks.
I know you said that in an interview that when you are in Manhattan, you should feel that you are part of NYC by Design. You put these actors together, and they are used to communicating in their own field, and now you're integrating them, and then they see the opportunities to collaborate with each other, and they also feel that now they're under an umbrella that will give them much more leverage. So what would be the examples of this sort of integrative work?
Sure. So I think collaboration is a word that I use constantly when talking about NYC by Design. And as you're suggesting, when this was first created, a lot of the people that were in this room, even just the steering committee, might view each other as competitors. And what we found over the years is once people relaxed a little bit and understood, kind of what the opportunities were, we've been able to, as kind of the center for the organization, we hear about places that want to be involved, but they don't have any programming. We're also hearing from people who have a great idea for an event or something that they want to do, but they have no venue. So probably the biggest example of that is Times Square. Several years ago, the Design Pavilion was created. It was a very kind of small installation in Cooper Square, and Eileen Shaw, who kind of developed this concept, the vision was to bring a big focus on architecture, design, have installations, have activities, have it something that's in the public, free for everyone to come and experience and learn about design. I saw the president of the Times Square Alliance at the kind of closing event that we had, and he said, we have to get involved in NYC by Design. I want to do something big, I want us to become a center of this. And my mind immediately went to Eileen and the Design Pavilion, and I said, this is the place for that to kind of grow. And we connected them, and last year was the first year. They took over 3 of the pedestrian plazas in Times Square, had multiple installations, and it was just amazing. And for me, what we're trying to do more of is having these opportunities for the public to interact with design, that you just, you turn a corner and you see something, it's like, oh, what's that? And you go, you learn something, you learn about NYC by Design, it might get you to other events. And this year was the second year, they took over all 5 of the pedestrian plazas in Times Square, and it was just amazing. Had this incredible inflatable structure that was created in partnership with a company called Inflate out of the UK, and it was the first time they had created something like this, and it became one of the installations where people could go, and there were different things that they could experience within this space, and they actually sold several of them because other people were seeing it and they were interested in this for their own business. So this was one collaboration. Then we have the NYC by Design Awards, and over the last 2 years, the first 2 years of the awards, they were held at MoMA. And they were held in an auditorium that was great, but we were limited in terms of capacity. There were only 400 seats, and we had far greater demand to attend this event. So this year, because of some construction as well that was going on at MoMA, we had to look for other sources or other venues. The Seaport District here, which is undergoing significant renovation, it's actually something that NYCEDC, our company, is behind, and Howard Hughes Corporation is the developer there. And they've just redone what's Pier 17, and there's an extraordinary space there that was basically empty. And this space, you're out right over the East River. Yeah. It's surrounded by windows, and you have the most amazing views of, you're looking at the Brooklyn Bridge, you're seeing, up the river, you're seeing down the river. And we connected Interior Design and ICFF, who produced the NYC by Design Awards, with the team at the Seaport. They're also on our steering committee. And voila, we had the most amazing award show this year. And now you're also seeing things like collective design, which has been part of NYC by Design since its inception. In fact, it launched the first year of NYC by Design, and it's grown each year. Stephen Lerner, who oversees that, has done an extraordinary job. And as they started diversifying a bit, they wanted to get a little more into art. So this year, they moved it to coincide with the Armory show. That's right. But many of the exhibitors, they still wanted a presence at NYC by Design. So Collective does a show within ICFF. And that's the sort of thing that wouldn't have happened in the past. I think another great example is what the schools have done. There's such extraordinary talent that's being developed now, and they're all on our steering committee. And last year was the first time they collaborated on an event where they developed the student showcase. So one night at one of the schools, they had a couple of grad students from their design programs presenting their concepts built around a particular theme. Mm-hmm. And it isn't a prize, it isn't a competition, it's just people, using their tremendous talent and presenting it to a very interested audience. But what was unique about it is it's probably one of the first times that all the schools came together and in one place, and like everyone's equal, and they loved it, and it was so successful that this year it was repeated.
Yeah, it's an incredible force in this, that to integrate people who have the same sort of overall objective and get them to collaborate. The problem for you maybe is that there's too much activity, too many programs, too many events, or is that an issue?
It is. It becomes an issue only because I even find I just can't get to everything, and there's so much that you want to see, and I think what's happening is, again, we're a very young program. This was only our 6th year, and each year as it grows, I think there's learning by the people who are producing events. Yeah. What's working, what isn't, what areas work for them, what areas might be potentially better, or maybe we should work together with some of these other events and create one big one out of it. So I think there's going to be a natural kind of evolution. We love there are a lot more international brands, organizations, even design weeks that show here to promote their show. And we're getting more and more of that. Traveled to a number of different design weeks, and people are constantly coming up and wanting to know, how can we, have a presence there? We want to, kind of be there. And it may be something that in years to come we do just a big spotlight on international, or we have a particular country or region that's being highlighted. But I think the numbers hopefully will continue to grow, but I think what we're also seeing is the quality of what's being done is being elevated each year. And this year, there was a lot of buzz about that, like just something really clicked, like we felt it took us to another level this year.
Well, it's a 30% growth.
Yes.
I mean, if you can sustain that for a long period of time. I know that in Sweden we had something called the Water Festival, and that grew also exponentially. They had to stop it. So maybe you have to deal with that problem,
That would be a problem I'd welcome.
So you talked about the Design Award. So is that the Nobel Prize of Design?
Well, we might think of it like that, although I don't know what the Nobel Prize right now.
But it's a prestigious award, though. I mean,
it is, and we're incredibly thankful to Interior Design Magazine and ICFF, who came to us and said, we would love to create an awards program around NYC by Design. And that was great news, first and foremost, because they felt that NYC by Design was important enough, what was happening and who was here and what was being shown, that those two major global brands wanted to get behind an award show for it. The other thing that maybe it was equal importance, they were going to do it. So it was kind of like, wow, that's amazing. And so they did that in the first year, and I think we had there were about 500 entries from around the world. There was a roster of judges, kind of design A-list that, fortunately, because of who was putting it on, they had that sort of access. And we just had a great event. And then the next year, they had like 700 applications. And this past year, I think there were about 800, and it was just, people you could see now they're really vying for it, and to receive the award, you're seeing it splashed all over social media. You're seeing people have taken ads out, promoting the fact that they won. And, our hope and expectation is that in time that will continue
Well, it's very ambitious. I mean, they're like, 30 categories? Even more.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
And then so you have to have a jury for each and every one of those categories, right?
Well, they have the judges are selected for different areas.
Okay.
Yes, and so not every judge is voting on every single category, but it's a big undertaking, a lot of logistics management, and the bulk of that interior design really is behind, and they're real experts at that. They have other kind of design awards that they do with the magazine,
Yeah.
and so everything is just kind of first class, including the award itself, which is
what is the award? I haven't seen a picture of it yet. Do you have?
Oh, really? Oh, you know what? When we're finished, I'll show you the actual award.
Okay. It's not a shovel, because I passed 120 shovels on my way in here.
No, that was for some different projects. The award itself is something that was created by Lladro, the Spanish ceramics company, and they developed this character, if you will, that is called the guest. And what they've done with this kind of, you figure you take like a blank canvas, you have this mold. It kind of looks like an elongated Mickey Mouse ears on a pedestal. It'll mean more when you see it. And I don't say Mickey Mouse in any form of disrespect to the award, but it's a character that you really just kind of smile at. I mean, it really is nice. And what they did with it is some of their designers in Spain, they made the character itself, they put a silver kind of glaze on it, so it looks almost like it's stainless steel, and it's on a base, a pedestal that each year has a different color. So we've had orange the first year, yellow, and then this year it was more of a red color. And then there's a little necklace. It almost looks like dog tags that have NYC by Design awards around the neck.
Oh, there it is. Wow.
And
that's very cool.
And this year, what was great at the awards is they had this larger-than-life recreation of it on display, and it became probably one of the Instagrammable moments of the awards. Everybody wanted to pose next to it. It was probably 15 feet tall or so, and so we hope that this will continue to grow in not only the quality of the entries, but also just in prestige. And we're really proud that it was, it's just been 3 years now, and it already, it seems to have gotten a lot of traction, and people are aware.
I was interested to learn about the district, the design district in Manhattan. It goes back to really what you are doing, which is to address the design communities and integrate them and leverage them in a way, which is a very dynamic thing.
Correct. And the four primary ones that they're in Manhattan: Soho, Tribeca, the Nomad, or north of Madison Avenue, which is becoming one of the new kind of design blocks. A lot of Italian brands have moved there. A lot of the furniture stores are there. And then the East Midtown Partnership, which is comprised of the all of the retailers on 56th Street, 58th Street. Have again a lot of the kind of design showrooms, and then they also have the D&D building and the A&D building, which are where showrooms for multiple design firms, for everything from wallpapers to fabrics to furniture, and so that's another design district. And what I think Soho has been doing it the longest, where they've been branded as such, and each year you're seeing that grow in the attendance, the engagement by the retailers, and throughout the year they have activities, and it's now I think very well branded, the Soho Design District. And I think in terms of collaboration, it's another example where some of the newer ones like Nomad really benefited from conversations with the Soho Design District. You know what you did, how you set yourself up, and they took that learning as they developed their design district. And this year was the first kind of big event that they did, and you walk there, and the streets were just packed, teeming with people, all kind of dressed up, having a great time. Lots of Italians, and it was just, you felt like it was a party. And they scheduled it, because they're all on our steering committee, so each one had their event on a different night.
Yeah.
And each district has unique offerings. So again, it's not like you're going and you're seeing, it's another sofa, it's another chair. Each one has unique offerings, and that's what makes it really interesting.
So what is your personal interests here? What do you go looking for when you have this incredible program in front of you in 2 or 3 weeks to explore?
I spend a lot of time going to a number of the larger events where I'm really interested in seeing how they're evolving each year, and they do. So experiencing them year to year is important. We have, I've seen things as a result of that, maybe made comments or suggestions, or thought of ways they might be able to, work with someone else as well to make it even better. And so it's satisfying to go and see these events. And then there are a lot of new ones that kind of pop up. And distinguishing characteristic of NYC by Design is that we're very broad in terms of our design categories, and we try to make this as inclusive as possible. There are a lot of events that actually are connected to things that the city's doing, developing, in public space. There was a competition at Times Square for street furniture. We had lectures talking about, or there was a panel discussion with the Department of Sanitation that you'd think, okay, Department of Sanitation, NYC by Design, what's the connection there? But it was fascinating, and it was how a fashion designer had reached out to them, had ended up doing some designs for their uniforms, and the whole story of it. It sounds, if you first read it, you might say, oh, yeah, right, that. Yeah. I'm not so sure that that's going to be so interesting. It was fascinating, and they were launching a competition for the redesign of the public trash receptacles, and that, when you start hearing about and understanding what goes into the design of something like that, literally, the trash can that's on the corner of your block. And all the different things, from what materials are used, how does someone access it? Is it something that's open or closed? What about recycling? And it just opens all sorts of questions that are part of the design conversation. Yeah. And part of what we're trying to do with NYC by Design, which is to make people more aware of how design just touches their life from the minute you get up to when you go to sleep.
What's in the pipeline here next for next year? And we should tell our listeners that it's in May, that they have to come here and visit the NYC by Design.
Well, first we have our kind of wrap-up steering committee meeting next week, and at that we'll be determining the dates for next year. But you can figure it'll be a couple weeks in the middle of May, and more of the planning really starts in earnest in September. Although we've already had outreach, during NYC by Design, there were a lot of people reaching out. We need to do something next year. We're thinking of X, Y, and Z. From our perspective, we want to see more public installations and more public opportunities for engagement. Times Square was a huge success. Also, out at Industry City, Wanted Design, they have a Brooklyn and a Manhattan outpost. And in Brooklyn, they worked with the artist Camille Walala, who basically, painted the entire facade of a building that is a permanent installation, and it's like this 3D optical illusion sort of design, and it's Tremendous, and it's right at the waterfront, so you can see this, if you're going along the river, it's going to be there forever. And it took what was a, old, faded, dark brick building and brightened it up. And people, walking by, you saw, I still am seeing it on, the social media feeds. And that's the sort of thing that kind of just gets people talking, and hopefully maybe a little more interested in design. They might learn a little bit more, find out about what she's doing, find out about Wanted Design, NYC by Design. And so there's a great, I think, positive effect to that. We'd also like to see more engagement from other parts of the city, retailers. We worked with restaurants, a number of restaurants this year, in creating special design drinks. And these were restaurants that have exquisite design, and there's a whole story behind that. So connect it that way. Hotel partners, same thing. This group of really formidably designed hotels, and who had kind of special offerings, and so kind of branching out from just the kind of events or shows. And ultimately what we'd love to see is just the whole city humming and buzzing, that everyone knows, oh my gosh, it's design week or design weeks. And you kind of can't help but be exposed to it in some way. And each year we're seeing that happen, and hopefully that will continue for next year.
Interesting. Well, some kind of physical manifestation in Soho would be very, very good. Now they've renovated the Soho Square Park, so maybe there could be something there to sort of highlight the Soho design district.
Yes, that's absolutely a possibility, and we've looked at a lot of public spaces. So, and the city, as you probably know, has a lot of public art installations and things that are done that the city is behind, and so those are also part of what we highlight during NYC by Design.
So what about the water, though? I was thinking about that the other day. The water aspect. Living on the water or traveling by boat, or the design elements around the water. Is that something that you were thinking about? Because Manhattan is an island basically, and it's a resource out there.
Yes, and the water is significant, certainly to us here at EDC. Particularly last year we launched the NYC Ferry system, which is, if you haven't done it, you must, and especially during the summer. It's extraordinary to just get on the ferry, get on at Wall Street, go up. Now you'll be able to go up to the Bronx, you can go to Astoria, you can hit Williamsburg, the East Side, 34th Street, and it's the most, first of all, they're beautiful ferries, and we promoted them as a means of transportation to a number of areas, like going to Red Hook. You can travel there, and it's actually easier than going on the subway. So the design of a transportation system. Last year, actually gave a talk during London's Design Festival about the branding of NYC Ferry and the design of that, and what went into that thinking, and with New York being a place where there's so much rich history in transportation with our subway system. You see that in design museums around the world. But we would love to see more, I think, things that are along the waterfront. When I referenced the Camille Walala installation, that's something you can see, you can experience. And over time, I think there will be more opportunities to take advantage of that, and it's really limitless possibilities. It's just we can only bite off so much each year. But the waterfront is absolutely on our radar.
And are you also running this big project with, is it BIG, the Danish architect firm, how to handle the increase of the sea water level and how to close off Lower Manhattan with these?
The city is working, yes, with a number of different groups with identifying ways to protect the waterfront from damage with the rising tides, the hurricanes, et cetera. And so that's something that we at EDC are involved with, as well as other kind of groups within, or agencies within the city system, and that's design too. And so these are the types of things that we want to draw more attention to, because a lot of people might not associate that. I think probably the default is, oh, it's furniture and decorative objects.
Yeah.
And it's so much broader than that. And that's why we want to ensure that what we represent here really is the full broad swath of what is design.
Yeah. No, it is fascinating when you think about it in deeper terms, that design is really a way of organizing people's behavior and pattern and inspiring people to do certain things. International participation, yes. I saw somewhere there were 22 countries represented. Was that 2017?
That may have been from the
maybe that was the
recap that was done then. But we continue to grow, and I think it's representation from Europe, Latin America, Asia, and each year that's growing. And in fact, there are several groups that are looking to open offices here for their businesses and understanding the importance of what's going on here, and obviously that helps bring in people from around the world.
One component that I found very interesting was that you have a lot of resources at your disposal. You have a lot of data around this when you are saying so and so many visitors and the economic impact. Obviously, you sit, and that's a great advantage for you because it helps you to organize this and helps you to develop it, correct?
Yes, and we're fortunate that here at EDC we have a tremendous research department, and they helped us over the last couple of years to ensure that we would be able to capture the sort of information that would allow them to then use their formulas and whatever that I couldn't even begin to understand, to come up with the numbers of what the economic impact is, how many people were attending, what the spending was, and part of that is information that we get when people register their events on the site, and then every year we do a follow-up survey. So there's a separate one for event organizers and another one that goes to consumers, and series of questions that are answered, and then all that data is kind of fed into their kind of system and analyzed, and that's how we end up being able to come up with the numbers.
I see.
And so it's a great thing for us to have that. In the first few years we didn't, and part of the challenge was we're dependent on getting information from the outside participants, and if that doesn't come in, we can't make it up. So it's not like, a lot of events, they, say an art fair, they are creating the whole thing, they control everything, and they can access whatever information they want. For us, we're dependent on others to provide us with that info. And the good news is people now understand the importance of reporting in and what that means when they're also out selling their event.
Yeah.
So this year actually we're seeing a much higher response rate, and so we're anxiously awaiting in the coming weeks what those numbers are going to tell us.
So what do you think? What's your gut feeling?
Well, I hope that it continues to grow. Yes.
I think so. Celebrating design, there's no better way to do that than attending NYC by Design. Thank you so much, Ed, for doing this, for taking the time, and congratulations on your great work.
Thank you.
I'll see you in May, if not before.
Yes, look forward to it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ed. This is Art Insiders New York. My name is Anders Holst. Thank you for listening, and be sure to visit Art Insiders New York to join the conversation, access the show notes and relevant links for the episode, subscribe to the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode of the Art Insiders New York, head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. Thank you. This episode was produced by UOM LLC, copyright 2019.